Good morning and welcome to LC 2020 News. We have a wide variety of stories that we're going to cover for you today.
That's right, it's going to be a really fun-filled day, but before we get started, let's head over to Shamariana for the weather.
Thanks, Hannah and Emma. Now for today's forecast. First, we head over to the rural areas. We've noticed a dramatic change in the weather. There's a huge snowstorm moving in. We're expecting about 16 to 20 inches of snow. There will most likely be a power outage, and your children will not be attending school tomorrow or for the next week. Yes, the worst would be unbearable, so there will be no chance for extracurricular activities. Now we head over to the urban area. We've noticed there was a flash flood warning coming in there as well. I know we've all heard this multiple times and we're used to this flood warning being called, but the teachers from other places, we won't be able to attract them as well. Now, over to you.
President Donald J. Trump has selected his pick for Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos. And I'm sure many of you know there's quite an uproar about her opinion on school choice and the public school system. But before Shamari talks about any of that, we thought we'd dig a little deeper and find out more about the history of American education. Emma?
Yes, thank you, Anna. Now, it all started back in the colonial classroom. It was here that the path to heaven, reading, writing, and moral development all revolved around the Bible. Prior to the first academy, which was founded by Benjamin Franklin in 1749, there were dame schools and apprenticeships that enabled well-respected women with an interest in education and young men who wanted to master a specific trade their fair share when it came to gaining knowledge and experience.
Now, what's interesting about the first academy came about was because of Benjamin Franklin. He wanted to build off the idea that Latin grammar schools, which were exclusively for boys of wealth, then Thomas Jefferson came about and put this idea forth into the world. He said, let's make education available to all economic and white social classes. But Mr. Franklin decided to take it even further than that and develop a new secondary school to replace these grammar schools. He called them the Public Academy of Philadelphia, where the students were taught a standard curriculum, the arts, the sciences, and they learned basic skills. This opened the door for so much more, such as common schools, which were the first public elementary schools, normal schools, which prepared teachers for their profession, and the Committee of 10, which ultimately brought consistency and high order to the school curriculum.
And I think what's so important to mention is how over all this time of rapid growth that we can see throughout our education system academically, there were big changes being made socially when it came to gender, race, and economic status.
Exactly. If we take a look back to 1858, we can see that the Kalamazoo case made it legal to use taxes to fund high schools, which brought about the term free public education. From there, compulsory schools and laws were established, which required kids to attend schools, and refusing parents were then fined or stripped of their parental rights. Then we can start to look at teachers' unions, Plessy versus Ferguson, which ruled in Ferguson's favor, the GI Bill, which helped servicemen receive an education, Brown versus the Board of Education, which stated that blacks and whites should not be separate but equal. The City University of New York open admissions policy, which opened the door for more diversity. The No Child Left Behind Act, Title I, which provided money for impoverished families. And then finally, the Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015, signed by President Barack Obama.
Wow. I mean, when you look at that, Anna, we really have accomplished a lot and have recently made just such remarkable and tremendous strides to ensure that every student is able to receive a fair and equal education.
Yes, and I think that it's so crucial that we continue to improve our educational system for the sake of our kids and for the future generation. So it will be interesting to see how many of these new plans will pan out for the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos. Now, on that note, we'll head over to Shamari to hear about the exciting crosstown matchups we have for sports. Shamari?
Thank you, Anna and Emma. Now see, tonight will be a very interesting matchup among the high school basketball community. There will be a huge doubleheader, first with the public ladies battling it out against the private ladies, and then the game will follow with the charter boys going up against the voucher boys. This will be an interesting matchup because both groups have a lot to offer. Both games could potentially come down to a buzzer beater, which would be very exciting. The Charter Boys are headed by their head coach, the CMO, and they have the nifty talented guards, nicknamed the Authorizer and the School Board. This team is very skilled and are giving free will to do what they please. The coach is very good at taking the talent that the player came in with and making them extremely better in that part of the game. On the other side, the Voucher Boys are highly recruited for a short amount of time at their school. The majority of the players chose to join this team because only the best of the best are chosen to be a part of this team. This team is well balanced, with everyone fitting into the team's goals evenly. On the girls' side of the matchup, this will also be very entertaining. The Public Ladies team is well stacked with all types of girls who have tried out for their team. The team is scrappy and tends to go for every loose ball. Such a shame, though, that their school is overcrowding, so it's harder and harder to make their varsity team. Lastly, their opponents, the Private Ladies, work together very efficiently because of their strict culture. Their coach is very strict, and you will not see these ladies turn the ball up very often. Both games tonight will be very entertaining, to say the least. But that's all the time that I have today. So now we go to Steph for a touch on the issues we have in the schools concerning the way schools obtain and use money.
Welcome to the segment, Finance, Funds, and Frustrations. We have a lot to cover tonight on this segment. Arguably one of the biggest problems right now in education is lack of funding. So, one thing that everybody can agree on is schools need money right now. A lot of us might ask, who should handle the money? And do schools get the money? Or does the government get some of the money? Where do we do? Local school boards, the state, the federal government, where does it go? Moving away from school boards will undetermined democratic deliberation and eliminate checks and balances, which would be problematic to our government. But at the same time, do local school boards qualify enough to have a final say in where that money goes? On another note, though, there's a huge disproportionate amount of funds that goes into the schools. A lot of it depends on the area or the school district that it's in. If you're from Illinois, the school funding depends on what district you're in. If you're in Naperville, then the money goes to only the Naperville schools. But if you're in Iowa, it goes by community. So if you are in the Marion district, your money will go towards Linn-Mar and Marion. And to go along with that, if socioeconomic status is high in the area, then the schools where that's located will have a better quality of education and funding overall. Students and family in the upper middle class that are affluent or elite statuses will send their kids where they receive a higher education and better education, as they say, even though the common curriculum of the working class or very underprivileged areas is lacking. Yes, I know, this is a very un-American ideal.
Thank you, Steph. With all this talk about funding schools, we find that many different people have a lot of different opinions. So, many taxpayers want to be ensured that their money is going towards quality education that's teaching their children to the best extent possible.
Yes, but see, the problem with that is that these days so many people have various opinions on what good teaching is. And we hear all this talk about one side, perennialism and essentialism, who stress the importance of subject matter knowledge in school, and on the other hand, we have romanticism and progressivism saying, no, we need to first look to the learner rather than the curriculum. But what I think it all boils down to is the fact that maybe these approaches are neither right nor wrong, and perhaps a mixture of student-centered and teacher-centered will ensure the best outcome.
I think you're onto something there, Emma. But why don't we take a look at what some people have to say about the philosophies of education. Plato says, for the perennialist, the purpose of education is to find the changeless truth, which is best revealed in the enduring classics of Western culture. Now, after looking at that, I think we can all agree that classes using this method can be a little dry, but the main point is quite genuine. That it is crucial to develop a person's mental discipline and rationality in order to avoid being dominated by their animal-like characteristics. However, when interviewing an essentialist teacher, we find that this topic isn't exactly black and white, but more of a gray area. She said, essentialism draws from two philosophies, idealism and realism. This means that we use the mind as a central tool for understanding an objective, and we take what the mind learns through contact with the physical world.
So, Anna, from this, I think we can gather that essentialism contrasts with the perennialist view that reasoning alone can lead to truth because they're missing that observation piece, which allows them to gain new knowledge.
That's exactly right, Emma. Now, when we look at the other end of the teaching strategy spectrum, we see romanticism, also known as naturalism. And to gain a better understanding of this, we talked to Swiss French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He said, children are born good and pure. Once exposed to the evils of society, however, they become corrupted. To keep children good, they need to become isolated from society for as long as possible. Therefore, we can see the purpose of education to romanticists is individual self-fulfillment, or in other words, education must help students develop physically, intellectually, socially, and morally, usually in that order. However, the problem that we see with this teaching philosophy is that carefree attitude, and some might argue that there's little to no structure to it.
And I think that is one of the main reasons why so many people lean towards progressivism as the best way to teach our kids, because, as stated by John Dewey, the place to begin an education is with the student rather than the subject matter. The teacher identifies what each student's interests and concerns are and tries to shape problems around them. So I think this way students are more engaged and involved because they're interested in what they're learning about and the teacher's there to help them along the way.
That is really great, Emma. Well, we're running a little short on time here, so we'll send it over to Steph at the Lourdes College to see what she has to say.
Thank you, Anna. I'm sitting outside of Waller Hall, and I just got done listening to Matt Buckley from Yuma, Arizona. He's a teacher down there, and he has some new educational approaches that he was sharing with us today. He talked about how the teachers are highly skilled and have high expectations for their students, and there was a big decrease in suspensions for them over the year. And they have their students taking all AP and vocational classes, so that helped with their college rates and graduation rise as well. I just think that this is a truly amazing program, and they're doing a lot of great things. So, back to you.
Thank you for that, Steph. Wow, there's some pretty neat stuff going on in Yuma, Arizona.
I could not agree more. Now, with all this talk about implementing better programs into the classrooms, we need to have the teachers who are willing to go the extra mile to ensure that these students are going to succeed.
That's right, Emma. After digging a little deeper into the topic of culturally relevant teaching, we found that there are some important things you need to know as a teacher. These include believing the success of all students, seeing themselves as members of the community, viewing their teacher as a way to give back to the community, promote a high level of academic achievement, maintain and support cultural competence, and foster a sense of socio-political consciousness.
And I think by having these teachers who empower students intellectually, emotionally, socially, and politically, it enables them to see more possibilities for change, and it helps the students make sense of their experiences in the world. So by creating a space in the classroom where students' voices are heard and valued, it inspires the kids to be active participants in their own lives. Teachers should be encouraging their students to express their knowledge in a variety of ways, such as drawing, writing, or making a video.
That is some excellent insight, Emma. Speaking of culturally relevant teachers, let's head over to Steph to get a glimpse of her interview with Mr. Mitchie and to hear what he has to say about his experiences.